Hannah Arendt. We're going to do Hannah Arendt, student of Heidegger's. By the way, there's a book out there called Heideggerian AI. It's written in the 60s. Haven't read it. I think the first thing I'm going to say, have you noticed that there's like no news? There's like no news. There's no news. There's no content. There's no nothing since Trump went to China. So we'll just tee that up. I think this is going to go back. I used to do this, call it on Sunday. I used to call it Church and State, which sounds like a Tucker Carlson kind of a thing. And then I thought I was a little bit more bougie by the 1,000 Years Together, sort of a play on Schultz and Nitzan's 200 Years Together. And so Ms. Arendt is a very Jewish, very German woman who came to the United States and is not known in the existential philosophy world like Heidegger and Jaspers, who were her professors. And I know that world very well because I wrote my senior thesis on it, which was an absolutely grueling thing. And but there's a video that I'm going to recommend to you. It might be here, it might not. It's called, I'll send you a link. And I want to start off by saying that if you look at what's happened through the war on terror, through the Biden and Trump administrations, okay, they're exactly the same outcome, aren't they? Right? The Democratic Party is completely responsible for her famous line is the banality of evil. Like the Democratic Party is just this perfect banality of MSNBC and Rachel Maddow and all the progressives all signed off on bombing an area the size of San Diego with 100,000 metric tons of weapon systems paid for by the American people. And I get on here and I'm like partly out of my mind about that. And I think what I end up doing is like pissing off everybody because everybody's in on this. I don't know what other thinker from the 20th century to point at. I talk a little bit about Foucault, but he's sort of like, he's sort of more for the academy. But, this is the woman who like flew to Jerusalem to see the trial of Adolf Eichmann. And they're like the same age, right? They're both Germans who lived through the exact same experience. So she's an interesting woman in so many respects. For the first thing I want to say is this interview that I'm going to show you, it's all in German, and it's sort of fun to listen to it in German because English and German are so close. You can sort of pick up, there's a vibe to listening to German. Usually most Americans have only heard German in World War II style movies, so it's scary to listen to, like Schindler's List. But she says this thing that you really have to pay attention to, where she says, men, something like men are obsessed with influence, or men are, and she gets this big grin on her face. And so my thought process is she drops into my like sex and conspiracy thing perfectly, because she lived through all these great like cathedrals of thought made by men like Martin Heidegger. Martin Heidegger completely sold himself out and became a Nazi. And they did to the universities exactly what Trump did to the Ivy League, right? To Harvard and to the rest of them. And they used the demonstrations, and I'd made a lot of content on this because I could see what was coming because I knew what happened in Germany, et cetera, et cetera. You see where I'm going with this? They made an example of Harvard because they weren't aggressive enough of putting down the protests against the genocide. I don't like the word genocide because like she would say, genocide already has become sort of appropriated and co-opted by the progressive movement as though they're fucking doing anything about it. They executed the genocide in Gaza. The Democratic Party, the people that are all concerned about genocide, not all of them. I'm just saying, like, the language gets co-opted so easy, right? I like the word extermination. Like when the Israelis talk about like mowing the grass, like that's not just like a genocide thing. That's actually like this is a ongoing, never-ending depopulation process. Bill Gates talks like that all the time. Kamala Harris talks about depopulation. All the Western elites talk about depopulation. In other words, all the Western elites have a banality of evil and a totalitarianism, and I don't know who else to reference to even listen to or read or whatever other than this woman, because she's so profound in like the big cathedrals of thought of the Martin Heideggers of the world. They don't work. And they don't really give you even a way to critique what's going on. And I know that there's so many women, young women who, I think 63% of college degrees now go to women. I don't know that they really have like a hero, I don't know if I want to say hero. Let's just go with it. To point to listen to, there's two ways of thinking. There's like reinforcing what you already believe in, reinforcing in like a corporate way. Oh, yes, we're very concerned about all these problems and blah, blah, blah. And then you have like Yale University, who just is a complete incubator for Robert Kagan and Victoria Nuland, responsible for another 1.7 million men, particularly men, extermination process in the Ukraine. And like, is the president of Yale University going to get up and like dismiss herself from these people? Fuck no. And I don't know why I thought of revisiting this woman. I don't think men have any firepower. Like I just discovered a new word that's like a German existential thing. It's like world loss. And like we have this thing since Trump went to China, like everybody's come back and all Americans are just like, what the fuck is going on? Like we don't even know what to say. Like even the financial system's just like, so what the fuck was all that about? The Iran war. We don't even know how to engage anything. The financial system's just sitting there going, the bond market just broke. Yours truly said that the stock market is the war. When the war ends, pardon me just a second. Hey, sorry, can I ask you guys about today? I'm like doing a day, so yeah. I won't be very long. My apologies. So we can see, let's just go back to like the American political world. Like we can see that like both parties are completely fake. They're just like dueling private equity firms or something. The Biden thing was brought in to execute the Gaza extermination. The Obama thing started the Ukraine extermination. Trump was brought in to start the Iran extermination. When I say extermination, I don't just, although he threatens like the civilization of Iran in total, right? Loser Iran. I loved it. Loser Iran. These are just they're just clowns. They're just fake. They're just front people. And I think this is the thinker from the 20th century who really like lived through like deep in the horror of the Holocaust and the relationship between Germans and Jews. And it's really interesting to listen to her, speak like a very clear German. And then she says, she says things that almost are contradictory. She said, like, if a teacher would say something anti Semitic at school, my mother would write a letter to the headmaster. But if the German kids made fun of you on the playground for being Jewish, you just had to suck that up. And it's this really interesting sort of mental discipline, which I think we've lost. I think most people, this is the banality of evil kind of a thing. Most people just go along with the ideas that they feel good with just because for the same reason people eat Doritos. They sort of know they're not good for you, but you get a little dopamine hit and you turn on Fox News or you listen to Tucker or little Nick Fuentes, have a little, afternoon of anti-Semitism and look at him in his silly flannel shirts and you feel a little bit better. Then she goes into this thing, this world loss thing. I'm really into. This is what like German existentialism is really good at. They're like giant memes. They take like a word and like make an egregore out of it. This is what existentialism is. And it's part of the like what I do here. Like I'll do a thing called Trump and Pope or something. It's almost like a German existential freak show. But I'm trying to just like give you these like big ideas. And lo and behold, like 2 years after I wrote a piece called Trump and Pope, JD Vance like goes head to head with the Pope. Like can't make it up. Same with the Antichrist thing. Okay, if you've followed me for some time, you have a smile on your face. You know that I can take a piss out of myself. So we have like a kind of like abyss in America of we don't even know what America is anymore. We don't even know if America exists. Like we don't even know if the federal government exists. The national federal system has broken down. Like when you have, I mean, I think both conservatives, liberals, progressives, blah, 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 like the whole national lobotomy thing should look at what happened in Minneapolis. You have men with their face covered with really no insignia on them. Maybe it says ICE, maybe it doesn't. With silencers on assault rifles with their face covered, breaking into a fucking house. My point is, the 1930s Germany never went away. And that's her point. We had like the gigant, what's the word I want to use? Like the gigantomachy, like of Stalin versus Hitler, like these two completely insane regimes of like just death and like go after each other in the 20th century. But really, all that infrastructure, like I've explained to you, Alex Karp is a Frankfurt School Bolshevik. And then Americans go, well, he works for Trump and Trump's a fascist. That's the point here, people. This is totalitarianism. We have to confront totalitarianism in this country. We have a very refined, corporate, very massaged in media, universities. We have a totalitarianism whose first order of business is to make you think that there isn't totalitarianism, or in a cruder sense, it's both a common phrase in English and German. The first trick of the devil is to make you think he doesn't exist. Spengler said that the English-speaking system, he wrote this in either during World War I or right after, he said the English-speaking economic political system, capitalism, democracy, neoliberalism as we call it today, you just have different flavors of that, right? You have like conservatism and you have progressivism, they're the same thing. It's just like we're going to tweak interest rates a little bit, or sorry, tax rates a little bit. They're just but that that our system is the most perfect tyranny ever conceived. He wrote that. So part of this is I don't think men really have much to offer. When you have this complete systemic collapse, like the meme that I've with Tim Dillon, and I've had fun. So they're raping and eating children. Who cares? The stock market's at an all-time high. Like, you couldn't make that's like a Saturday Night Live skit, and that is how our federal government works. I don't think there's anybody else to listen to other than our friend Ms. Arendt. Banality of Evil, Totalitarian. I haven't read any of these books. I just know her name constantly comes back up when you look at the Holocaust, when you look at the dialogues about the Holocaust, when you look, I think her rejection of these like male cathedrals of thought, and says early on in this piece, I'll put it up. I'll put a link up if you want to watch. It's about an hour and 20 minutes. You're gonna have to watch somebody speak German and smoke cigarettes to another guy who's smoking cigarettes and speaking German, but the subtitles are there. She says that she doesn't really want to participate in philosophy, although she's right on top of it, because it doesn't want to confront the real world. And so she thinks of herself primarily as like, at best, like a political philosopher. We have two camps in this country. Like, let's do the Coggin family at Yale. Bob just wrote a real nice piece in Substack of what a failure like Trump's war in Iran is. Okay, Bob. Thanks, Bob. Bob's the guy who wrote in The People for the New American Century that we should use. Brace yourself for this. Just take this in. Like, talk about banality of evil. It's just in the document. His father gave me, I've read it a month or two ago, my introduction at Yale with my parents sitting there. Like, he was the provost or whatever the fuck it's called, like dean of students or whatever, who like gives the big speech as you sit there and are taken in. That bioweapons are a legitimate form of political power. Bioweapons. This guy isn't in Russia or China or Turkmenistan or any other or the Congo. This guy is the son of the dean of students at Yale University. Just openly says we're going to use bioweapons to exterminate people. DNA-based bioweapons. Nobody does a fucking thing. This is why we have to. I think I'm going to do this for the next year. It may turn into something academic. I don't know. I don't have any other person or thinker to point to who is confronting these issues. In some ways, not even Chris Hedges, who I think the world of. There's no real, either metaphysical or psychological thinker. And I think it really is because you have to have the power of the masculine thinking of the Heideggers of the world, but yet they don't really know what to do whenever they really look at Gaza. I mean, Gaza is some sort of what they did is they bombed it into an existential nothingness and then created the Board of Peace. This is so fucking weird. And we all walk around it. The Democrats bombed it. Trump made the Board of Peace. Americans eat a chicken sandwich and move on. We're all doing that. We're all Adolf Eichmann. You follow me? In my heart of hearts, I also think that there's a problem of, I read Nietzsche and Heidegger and Schopenhauer and Thomas Mann and that whole chunk of German literature for from the mid 19th century to like the mid 20th century. I don't even have like to point, like my daughter just graduated from college. I don't even know what to point to her that she should go read, or people like her, like to confront all this stuff. It's nowhere to be found in popular media. Um, Substack, I mentioned people like Abby Martin and Noam Chomsky and no one really wants to go there. um, Here's the headline. Look at the headlines right now. This is sort of an intro, by the way. We're not even diving into anything, but look at the headlines. We're in Hannah Arendt land. Look at this shit. Remember I did the Armageddon thing a couple months ago? And I said, by the way, in the book of Revelation, there's going to be a big fucking fireball over Jerusalem. That happened last night. In the book of Revelation, it says there will be a giant fireball. There will be a giant fireball seen by all the world from east to west or something like that. Now, was this an accident? Was it Iran just detonated something in the atmosphere? Or was it done on purpose to fulfill the Bible? When you're looking down the barrel of a gun, what's the difference? That's a line from the Departed. Come on. Okay, Google, go away. Even the Google thing, right? Like all this technology. Like there's a thing reading my eyeballs right now. Like you can't make this, like you just have to sit back. Well, no, we're not like the Nazis. The Nazis never even anticipated all this surveillance. Stalin couldn't even anticipate all this perfect surveillance. We've made a perfect technological panopticon. And I'll probably go buy another iPhone, and I even know all this. And because we're all like eating Doritos, this is the banality of evil. We're just all sort of fucking lazy. I mean, what am I going to do? Like go like find a phone from like Huawei or something and have it imported, or fly to Mexico City or some shit? Because I don't want Israel to look into my eyes. I think there's even a book, I've not read it, called The Fourth Reich, and says the English-speaking world is the Fourth Reich. They made the Third Reich to fight communism, and then they just gathered all the technology and all the surveillance from both sides, and now we have Dajjal, the Antichrist, Peter Thiel, Alex Karp. Let's go like this. It's on this side. We have this. Like this is why we have to study our German Jewish friend. So I think these things on Sunday, I started off by saying I used to call them 1,000 Years Together, church and state. People like that. Middle-aged white men like to hear things like that. But I think, let me leave you with this. I think this is going to be called Who's There on Sunday, because I like to do literary stuff, biblical stuff, Shakespeare, you know what I mean? Who's There is almost like German existentialism. It's the first line of Hamlet, by the way. So, you know how, like, if you like theater like I do, or even movies, you know how, like, the opening thing of, like, the unicorn jumping, or, like, the MGM lion and all that shit, and you get that anticipation thing? So imagine, like, a curtain opens and someone just stands there, a guard, a warrior just stands there and goes, "Who's there?" Okay, in German, that would be probably something like Dasein. It means being there. It's like a real important word in German existentialism. I think America is in a kind of existentialism. Like I've always said, if the people who wrote the book, The Fourth Turning, are right, we're going to wake up to 1776, 1860, 1929, 1932, 1940, 1968, all at the same time. And let's throw in 1812 because that's when we fought the British Empire to a stalemate. They burnt down the White House, remember? They didn't burn it down, but they burned it. So we don't have, like Mark Levin's out of his mind. Mark Levin wants us to kill all the Muslims. Because they're not really aggressive towards us. Iran, Iran, if they wanted to, they could do very, very terrible things to the United States. Iran could blow up the George Washington Bridge in like 24 hours if they wanted to, but they don't. There's particularly white men have completely run out of intellectual firepower. People like me might quote Thomas Jefferson, if the bankers ever get the ability to create money, blah, blah, blah. No one's going to fucking do anything about it. The Federal Reserve is being turned into an MMT machine. During the week, I'll talk more about that. Warsh, this guy's brought in from Druckenmiller Capital, from Duquesne Capital, from Druckenmiller's house, the hedge fund guy. He's an MMT guy. Go check this out. It's the Republican Party, the conservative Milton Friedman Party of Ronald Reagan and Barry Goldwater about to turn the fucking money printer on wide open. They argue that the natural, and I'm not necessarily for or against this, right? I'm an influencer. My job is to sort of entertain you and say silly shit like, let me tell you something, Linda. The irony that the white men with $40 trillion in debt after being at war since 9/11 are going to turn on the money printer wide open and say, the $10 trillion that's coming due, fuck it. We're not issuing any more 30-year bonds because this is what happens. If this is all like mad science too, they don't want that 30-year bond to go up anymore. Okay. They can sort of fuck around with the short-term money, like your credit card, right? Your credit card's always, or your home equity loan's always a variable rate, right? But your mortgage, you've locked in for a long time. So if you lock it in at 12% versus 4%, the amount of interest, we all sort of know that intuitively after buying a house and signing our life away. So they don't want that 30-year bond that just cracked 5%. They don't want that to take off. It's happening all around the world. France, UK, Japan, all around the Western world. Those rates are just like this. So what they're going to do is they're not going to issue any 30-year bonds. They might even buy them. What do you mean buy? This is what Besant said. This is what the Moran paper said. They would be borrowing so much short term. In other words, it'd be like you're borrowing on your credit card to pay your mortgage. We've probably all done that a little bit, right? We did like at Christmas time, we have to get tires. You need to like $2,200 or something. And you're just like, really what you're doing is you're paying your mortgage with your credit card. That's where America is. But the funny part about this is it's not Joe Biden or AOC or this Stephanie Kelton deficit myth thing is now being presented by the Trump administration. I just think this is so much fun. It's exciting to watch your country go bankrupt. It really is. It'd be better explained by Tim Dillon. The whole American conservative movement, from like Barry Goldwater to this Warsh guy, is a Tim Dillon skit. The brown people are fucking us, with China's ripping us off. The whole white male worldview is just an epic failure. Like Mark Levin is a Tim Dillon skit. So what they're going to do is they're just going to borrow trillions and trillions and trillions short term, but force the rates down. And one thing that the government has control over is the banking system. Okay. If you've never opened up an account for an LLC or a corporation or any sort of business, and you want to see how the world really works, go in and open up a checking account for a business and just have the smallest thing a little bit questionable, and you'll realize how the economy really works. Republican and Democratic Party don't have anything to do with anything. The Federal Reserve System runs the economy. Okay. And we can't borrow any more money in a natural capitalistic supply and demand market based economy anymore. So, a Marxist guy's going to come in and just say, we're going to borrow $1 trillion a month and you're going to get paid less than 1% on it. Go fuck yourself. These are the people, the Club for Growth and Larry Kudlow and all these chest pounding white males who believe, remember Larry Kudlow used to get on every day and say, free market capitalism is the best economic. Remember, he used to do that that was his opening line for the Kudlow show, right? And now the Republican Party is going to print money wide open, wide the fuck open to keep interest rates at 1%. In other words, if there's not enough banks and demand from, I don't know who's going to borrow money. I guess like Warren Buffett's going to buy T-bills forever at 1%. See, even Warren Buffett's sort of part of this. Isn't this crazy? There's no real deep science to this, people. This is, again, like if there's like a banality of evil, this is like the banality of money printing or something. Like, well, we can't really pay the bills, so fuck it. Let's just print. And then what's going to happen is AOC is going to come on top of that, and the bills are going to and the whole thing is going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. It's like the only guy who ever got off this is Keith Richards. Keith Richards ran his body like this for like 40 years, just one drug, and his big thing is speed. He loves to do speed and stay up for 3 or 4 days. And somehow the son of a bitch is still alive. We need like the Keith Richards economy. We need to investigate how Keith did this, because this is what we're transitioning into. We're going to do all the drugs all at the same time. We're going to do AOC, Mamdani, Trump, Warsh, money printing, socialism. There's brown water coming out of the fucking faucet in Jackson, Mississippi, all at the same time. It's the Keith Richards economy. There it is. Here's the massive fireball over Jerusalem, right out of the book of Revelation. There's one other headline that caught my eye on the Drudge Report. There's like no news because it's over, people. Everything's over. Like the war on terror is over, stock market's over, bond market's over. Oh. What could go wrong with this? Palantir is flying drones on behalf of Ukraine into downtown Moscow. What the fuck could go wrong here? We are, next Sunday, if you're into this kind of thing. The other thing that's interesting is she's not a believing Jew. Although when confronted, she would stand up. She and her mother and her father would stand up for their Jewishness. And when confronted, people would say, "Are you German?" And she would say, "No." It's very interesting. Like, so there's an element of like racism, good old-fashioned German Wagner-style anti-Semitism. She stood up in the midst of all this. But I don't even think that like Stalin and Hitler would have said, let's just throw missiles at each other's capital and see what happens. But that's what we're doing. But it's all going to be run by AI. It's all going to talk about the banality of evil. Yeah, the computer's going to do it. The compute. We're just going to let the compute bomb Moscow. And then people go, well, what's the Terminator thing or whatever, the Skynet thing? Skynet's on, people. Skynet's on. The Skynet isn't just going to like launch the missiles, but that's the point. It's the little inch by inch banal increase of violence around the world. We're going to launch missiles everywhere. Alex Karp said we're going to destroy Russia, China, and Iran with AI. It's here. It's on. We're going to suck all the gas and water out of Utah to execute this. It's in some ways more insane than if Hitler would have stood up and said, I'm going to kill all the Jews or something like that, he would have been deposed. He would say like these little one-liners like the Jews have no future and things like that. But then again, I'm going to post the thing and you can go watch it yourself. Make a cocktail or get a pack of cigarettes, and because she's like a chain smoker. I think maybe we should all start smoking. And she said, and you can see like her in her face, it wasn't, Schindler's List. It was that first shock of the Reichstag and what she describes as extrajudicial arrests. We've already had that in the United States, in Minneapolis. It's already happened. It's happening right now. We have nobody to vote for. Thomas Massey is running, not against another candidate, is running against I don't know if she's a billionaire, but close. Thomas Massey is running against a billionaire Zionist. And what you're going to hear from our friend Hannah, Professor Arendt is somebody who's going to teach me how to say that properly. I'll listen to enough videos I can finally do it. Is the fascism and Zionism that grew up together in Germany are now completely merged in the United States. Mm-hmm. There's a pretty intricate white paper for paid subscribers. Okay, deep thought for you as we go away. The way she describes this banality of evil thing, the way she describes Eichmann, is not this kind of supervillain like I think Alex Karp clearly is. Very well educated, very powerful, lots of money, lots of crazy language. It's just, there's another kind of evil that's just sort of lame. And that actually goes back to a very important theological idea. It's like a medieval idea. It's an Augustinian idea of the, how do I want to say it? Sometimes it's called the great chain of being, but of things that have more being, more power, and God is like the ultimate expression of this. He has more being than we do. And that's sort of what she's talking about with this banality. Like this just, Eichmann could have been like a mid-level manager at Walmart. It's sort of the same thing. And the thing I just listened to, like, when Bill Gates gets up, he just says there's like a surplus population. And we just need to, like, my dad was planting corn. Let me leave you with this. It's sort of an interesting idea. Like every 20 corn pieces is not GMO. So they just have like this superfluous thing that all the bugs go to eat that corn plant instead of eating the other ones. So they eat the other ones and they get turned away from it. It's because they can somehow sense like the resistance to their whatever they're doing. So they go to this one plant and they all eat this one plant and the one plant dies. that's part of like the American economy is Bill Gates just gets up and there's just too many of you. There's like 8% of you are like the little purple corns that just need to go away. So like if you drink some brown water in Jackson, Mississippi, too bad. That's America. That's what has happened to America. And we have no way. Is Erica Kirk going to lead us out of this? Uh, Tucker? You know what I mean? MTG said fuck it and went with her boyfriend to Costa Rica or something. We got nobody. So a big part of the Bruno project is to build something to help us all act. In other words, I never really wanted to make a political action committee and like I could get money and like do videos and shit and, you know, take a nice salary and, you know, it just isn't. The reason I do this is because I look at Gaza and I go, well, who's doing it? You know, Susan Sarandon is like is a you know popular actress, spectacular actress, has like a feminist persona. You know, what was the movie where they go off the cliff? Thelma and Louise, and basically ended her career by going anti-Israel. But my point is, nobody does anything. It's not just to have an opinion and to feel good about yourself and to do a Nick Fuentes and throw out some anti-Semitic tropes and even dumb shit like beef. Like the supply is going down, demand is pretty much fixed or up, the price is up, and nobody does anything. I just find it bizarre that like nobody's inclination is even to go, what the fuck? And I think we have to think some really deep thoughts about how our system works. That we have inherited the worst of the 20th century: Zionism, Bolshevism, fascism. We've just taken all that and made a big stew with it, and we call that the American experience. And then the silly bitch goes, well, the stock market's at an all-time high. So there's a pretty in-depth white paper. You have to click on the thing that says white paper. No offense. Just some people were like, where's the white paper? And I went, it's the button that says white paper. Okay, but you have to pay for it. Pay for it for 1 month and cancel it. I don't care. This is not like, if we were going to do a coin rug pull, we've done it a long fucking time ago. But if you take some time and you really slow, I mean, I think it'll take you 6 months to understand that white paper. You're not going to read that white paper and go, oh, I get it. You're going to go, okay. And then how's that work? A year ago, I told you, because somebody told me, not because I understood it, that blockchain and AI were going to basically merge. They're eventually going to be seen as the same thing. That is now the truth. OpenAI is failing. OpenAI has always been a joke. Sam Altman's a joke. The $1.4 trillion valuation is a joke. It's being beaten by Anthropic. It's probably going to go away. The NASDAQ is burning through, the Magnificent Seven are burning through all their cash, building the demon, as Tim Dillon says. It's our time. It's our time to act. Have a nice weekend.